Good afternoon and welcome to Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. My name is Buffy, as you all know. If you're new here, welcome. Happy to have you. I'm a women's lifestyle creator on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, covering various topics that concern women. We've lately been working on family dynamics and talking about truth and some phenomenons that sometimes we don't have the language to name, which is completely normal, right? So we're happy to have you here. Thank you for all the returning viewers, and thank you for the new viewers and for the support, because honestly, I am very, very happy to be able to communicate with you all. And I don't know how long you all have been here, but if you've been here from the very beginning, I used to always open with the idea of having a community for women where women felt safe, where they were able to comment without being ostracized or feel like they didn't belong, right? Everyone is welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. I'm a very inclusive person, and I enjoy reading your comments. As you know, I do look at the community quite frequently, and I love to offer others encouragement and hope, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to show love to others and encouragement to others. And you all have been, for the most part, so encouraging, and I appreciate it a lot. So today we're talking about the silent contract, why the recovering perfectionist is still trying to fix their family. There's a moment many recovering perfectionists eventually reach, usually after years of trying, fixing, smoothing, explaining, and absorbing. It's the moment you realize, I didn't choose this role, but I keep honoring it anyway. No one ever sat you down and explained the terms. There was no ceremony, no consent, no signature. And yet, somehow, you became the one who kept the peace, carried the emotional weight, explained everyone to everyone else, absorbed tension so others wouldn't have to. This is what I call the silent contract. And most people don't realize they're living under it until they try to stop. What the silent contract actually is, the silent contract is not written, it's felt. It forms in families where harmony matters more than honesty, where love feels conditional, where approval is earned through behavior rather than belonging. The contract sounds like this, even if no one says it out loud. If you are good enough, calm enough, understanding enough, quiet enough, we will keep loving you. And so, perfectionism becomes less about excellence and more about emotional safety. You learn early that being easy keeps things from getting worse. You don't engage in conflicts. By golly, you better not call out the truth or a wrong that you're seeing. For instance, when you end up doing a family event and everyone else is throwing a fit, and you're like, look, this is my one night out. Like, I'm having a night out. I'm supposed to be enjoying this too. Why are you throwing a fit and getting angry over something so small? And then guess who becomes the problem? You become the problem because you spoke the truth, because you said, look, I'm supposed to have a good time too. And the fact that you all are fighting and acting like children is really disturbing. You learn early that being easy keeps things from getting worse. That being agreeable makes you useful. That being strong means not needing too much because you're self-contained. You can handle yourself. You're the one that's agreeable. You're the one that doesn't engage in conflict. You're the one that goes along with the flow. Because if you don't, then you become the problem. In that scenario that I mentioned where I literally said, you know what, like this is my one night out. I had a baby 4 months ago. This was a while ago. Had a baby 4 months ago. This is my night out. And you guys are literally ruining it for me. And the person that I was defending actually said to me, gee, thanks a lot. You're getting me in trouble. I'm not getting you in trouble. The person that you are dating is the problem, is what I wanted to say, but I didn't. And then everyone's like, gosh, I can't believe she's acting like that. Why is she acting like that? To which my spouse said, because she's had enough. That's why. And it does take a lot for me to confront others, but when I've had enough, I've had enough, literally had enough. And the thing that I was always taught is don't dish it out if you can't take it. So generally, like I've said before, I don't do conflict. But when I've had enough, I've had enough. And I'm like, you need to grow up. You need to stop. This is ridiculous. You're ruining everyone's time. You need to quit. And then I become the bad person. It's okay. I have broad shoulders. I can handle it. And then I had to end up going home early because the people that we had watching our child, he was inconsolable, which is okay. I mean, it happens, but I was like, I wanted to have fun too, right? But kids are beautiful. Kids are awesome. No complaints. Would have done it 1,000 times before, but still the drama and stuff, no thank you. Again, another advantage from my when family turns against you stuff. No big deal. So you didn't choose this consciously. You adapted. And why perfectionism feels moral. One of the hardest things to unlearn is the belief that perfectionism is a virtue. And that's probably because since we've been little or in this role or this contract that we signed that we didn't know we signed, it literally feels like it has been spoon-fed to you from a very small, young age. Okay, we don't cry here. No, we don't do that. We share. We do that. All of these lofty goals that you put on your children. Children are seen, they're not heard. You don't say no. You don't tell mommy no. You don't tell mommy no. I want to go home now. All of those things, right? And my particular parent had a look. And that look, I knew that look very well. And I knew that I was oftentimes said, better wait till we get home. Better not do this. You better not do that. I mean, as a mother now, I think, oh my goodness, my kids would not have been able to live up to that. There's no way. And ultimately, it's like putting that kind of pressure on your child, you wanting them to be perfect. I mean, how fair is that? It's not fair at all. Because it doesn't feel selfish. It feels responsible. But ultimately, we know that no one is perfect. I know I told you this story about the boss that I had that was like, okay, I'm going to need you to start being 100%. In which I told her no one is 100%. And I would be lying to you if I said that I could be 100%. So there's only one person I know that's perfect. And that's not me and that's not you. And sorry, I'm not going to say I'm going to be 100% because I will fail. And I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself into a trap like that. And it's really unfair for you to ask me to do that. So you tell yourself, someone has to be the stable one. If I don't do it, who will? Right? Because somewhere innately in your childhood or beyond, you learned that you had to be the stable person, that you had to be the responsible one. You had to do the right thing. Where did that come from? Who knows? Ultimately, I can't really trace mine. I do know that I'm an only child, of course. So, of course, the buck stopped with me, right? Apparently. And it's almost like at least I can keep things from falling apart. I can keep people happy because I'm going to be easy. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to do what they want me to do. I'm going to jump through the hoops that I have to jump through to get along. And to this day, I think that that is my aversion for conflict. Because I don't want anyone upset with me. I don't want anyone thinking that I'm a mean person or that I'm trying to hurt others, because that's not who I am. And somewhere along the way, it kind of morphed into me somewhat being a little bit of a doormat in other areas. But I am learning to say and realizing, and if you guys are struggling with this, I can say that I've learned, no is a complete sentence. Or when someone is insulting you, I've learned to do the whole thing of, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you just said. Do you mind repeating that? 9 times out of 10, I found that they don't want to repeat that. Because you can make a nasty comment like once, but when someone is like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Most people don't have the courage to repeat something nasty like that a second time or a third time. Over time, perfectionism becomes fused with our identity. You're not just capable, you're necessary. And letting go doesn't feel like rest. It feels like betrayal. The truth no one prepares you for. Here's the part that hurts, but it also frees. The silent contract was never mutual. It's almost like a contract of adhesion, which is something that you were forced into. That's what I would say. You were showing up faithfully to an agreement and only one side was aware of. And the moment you stop over-functioning, the system reacts. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've disrupted the equilibrium, the balance, what they expect to happen. They expect you to do everything that is asked of you and more. They expect you to be quiet, be happy about what you're doing, and continue giving, and not say a word. Even if you're tired, even if you're exhausted, even if you have other obligations. People may say, you've changed. I've heard that. You're right. In some ways I have. I have 5 children now. I have a spouse to take care of. Right? I have a life. I have a career. I have things I'm doing. I'm sorry. I would love to be there for you. I would love to give you what I can give you. And ultimately, I still do give to my family because I love my family. But ultimately, I don't have the time that I once had when I had 1 child or 2 children. You know what I mean? And then you got their activities and all this other stuff. Not making excuses, but if you know, you know, right, guys? You're being difficult. Or why are you making this such a big deal? Well, it's easy to say to someone, hey, couldn't you do more? Because I got stuff to do. I have things that I have to do that, I just can't right now. And I think that your schedule would lend itself a lot more to doing the things that I'm not able to do. Okay. That might be your perspective, but do you live my life? It's almost what you want to say. Do you live my life? What they often mean is, you're no longer carrying what made my life easier. And when you start messing with somebody else's life, so to speak, because you're taking less of a load, because you've realized that you're overwhelmed, you've got a lot going on, that's when you become the problem. That's when you're to blame for their issues. The other thing that I found in this whole scenario is that ultimately the person who tries to do the most and tries to help the most, they're the least appreciated. They're the person that literally is made to be the bad person because they're not holding their load, but they're the person that could actually carry more. They're the first one to get flack because they're not doing what's anticipated of them. Even though who else is volunteering? Who else is standing up? Who else is making sure that things are getting done? And ultimately, I realized that in a lot of ways, I've taken on the role that my grandmother had. And my grandmother, who passed away in June of this year, actually last year, June of 25, she was just like everything. Like, she cooked for everybody, like all these holidays. A lot of people didn't help her very much. She cleaned, she did laundry, she's a typical housewife, and she enjoyed that role. She was good at that role. She was a loving grandmother, and she was a role model for me. But now that I'm older, I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, she was literally a lot of times a workhorse, like she cooked things, she took things. Everyone talked about how great of a cook she was. She was kind, she was gracious. I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm kind of like my grandmother now. You know what I mean? And I take that with pride because she was an awesome, awesome person. And she had an intuition and she set me on a really, really good path and gave me so much insight into certain things. And she was also very intuitive, so she could kind of warn you about certain situations. And man, what a good lady she was. So sorry to divert, but so ultimately, it's like choosing truth over belonging at first. So you think about, because once you see the contract, you can't unsee it, right? And the loneliness of awareness, because this is where the road gets quiet. Because now you know about the contract and now you know kind of how it separates you from everyone else. And you realize how much of your goodness was survival. How much honesty was postponed for peace. How often your needs were labeled too much. You talk too much. You're too much. You need too much. You expect too much. You want everything to be too much. And the hardest part is this. You didn't know you were chosen for this role, but you accepted it because sometimes it felt safer than the alternative, which is being ousted. Maybe you were afraid you were going to be ousted. Maybe you're going to be ostracized. Excuse me. And the reason why I mentioned the only child thing is because I am an only child, as I've said before. And I had relationships with extended relatives that seemed like sibling relationships. And they were close at one point, sure. But everything that you find out about family is that hierarchy does matter to some degree. So you can be like a sister to someone, but like a sister is not the same as a sister. Especially if you were to run afoul of an older sibling. Because the older sibling has the ability to round up his troops or flying monkeys, whatever you want to call them, and be able to push a narrative that he wants to push or she wants to push. And that is ultimately the truth. And that's okay. Again, not my issue. So there is grief in the realization that you were chosen for this. Grief for the version of you who thought being perfect would eventually be enough. And guess what? Some people will never be satisfied if you did every single thing for them. Every single thing. If you made all the meals at Christmas, at New Year's, at whatever. Kept their house clean and you did everything for them. They would never, but what about you forgot this part? Because some people will never be satisfied with anything that you do. You could be the most perfect person in the world and guess what? They're not going to care. Because they're still going to look at you like you need to do more. Choosing truth over belonging at first. At some point, every recovering perfectionist faces a quiet crossroads. You can continue honoring the contract, or you can begin honoring yourself. Choosing truth does not make you cruel. I ultimately have put a hard line. I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to be dishonest because I have a truth and I'm a really terrible liar. I'll be honest. I just am. And so I do not lie. I do not delight in lying. And here's the other thing. If you're telling the truth, you never have to remember what you said. But if you lie and you make things up, it's pretty difficult maybe to remember what you said at points. And on the other hand, I've talked to you guys a lot about me not liking conflict or drama. Yeah, I don't. So I'm not going to say any nasty thing about someone and then have them tap me on the shoulder and say, did you say XYZ about me? And then they like punch me in the nose or something. I don't know. Again, I don't like drama. I don't like any of that. But I will be honest. And people know that about me. Even I've had people that say, I don't really like her very much, but she's always honest. And that comes from people who, don't really like me, but they know that where I stand. And to me, that means a lot. So ultimately, if you choose to honor yourself, know that they're not going to be happy about that. But you know what? They sure don't have a problem honoring what they want to do and how they want to do it, and having you continue to kind of clean up after them if that's what they need. So choosing truth does not make you cruel. It makes you congruent. And yes, it can be lonely, because ultimately the person that tells the truth, they're seen as someone who maybe is mean, is someone who is maybe not telling the truth, someone who's just trying to hurt others. But ultimately, doesn't it say the truth sets you free? Tell the truth sets you free. You're going to be lonely because you're not telling them what they want to hear. It's not because you're wrong, because you're not wrong. You're not wrong for telling your truth. You're not wrong for telling the truth. The truth is important. But because honesty often precedes real connection. The people who only knew you as the fixer may not know how to meet you without the role. That's not your failure. That's the cost of authenticity. And for me, being authentic is extremely important. What healing actually looks like. Healing does not mean confronting everyone. It does not mean burning bridges. It does not mean rewriting the past. It means this: noticing when you feel compelled to manage emotions that aren't yours. Fortunately, I have that happen a lot. Pausing before fixing what was never your responsibility. I get a lot of things that aren't my responsibility. I take them because, again, I don't want conflict, which is probably not the right way to handle that, to be honest. Allowing discomfort without rushing to resolve it. Again, no one likes discomfort. Neither do I. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Just trying to put a Band-Aid on it to make it go away. Especially if you're a person who feels deeply or you're a sensitive person, then you know. Just the somatic symptoms that sometimes come with that. It means learning that love does not require performance. And I'll be honest, this line actually triggers me a little bit because I don't really see that I'm performing, because I feel like in some ways, and I don't know how many of you relate to this, I feel like in some ways that I put the perfectionist label on myself because I have been extremely rigid when it comes to my expectations of myself for quite some time. And so I don't know what came first. Was it because of like how I was like raised in some way to have people expect more from me? Or did I become that because of the expectations? And I'll be honest, I don't know. But I do know that I've always been a perfectionist, and was never satisfied with what I did. I always wanted to do more and more and more and more and more. And so that, of course, was probably noticed. So yeah, but I don't really feel like I don't perform. So what you see here is what you get. I am who I am. I mean, I'm kind of quirky sometimes, I know that, but I don't feel like the performance thing kind of gets me, just because I don't fake. I don't pretend. I am who I am on here, out in the street, wherever. I don't pretend to be someone that I'm not. And so the performance thing kind of sticks me a little bit. I don't know how many of you have kind of struggled with that. But slowly, sometimes painfully, you begin to experience something new. Emotional independence. And I will say, I am very well aware of my emotions. I'm very good at pinpointing, things like loneliness or sadness or anxiety or any of those. And ultimately, I've been cut off since probably 11 years now. 11 years now, yeah. Not isolation, not indifference, but freedom. And so ultimately, I feel like I have freedom. I have my little family that I'm worried about, and, some of my other relatives that I worry about and love very much. So, hey. So, the heart of it all. And this is where I want to say something plainly. Because if you're listening to this, you may already know it in your bones. You didn't know you were chosen for this role, but you accepted it because it made sense at the time. It helped you survive. It gave you a way to belong. And now you're choosing something else. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because the only road you know how to walk anymore is the honest one. Since I've been a child, I've been asked by multiple people if I liked someone, or if I liked this, or if I liked that. And I would always say, truthfully, how I felt. No, that person makes my stomach hurt. To which point, sometimes the person will respond, well, can't you just pretend to like him or like her? And at which point I would look and I would say, they make my stomach hurt. And it was like, well, I don't remember knowing what that meant. But I think instinctively I knew, and intuitively I knew that meant that was a bad signal for me. And that there was no way I was going to pretend to like someone who gave me a bad feeling. And the person was like, well, why not? Because they make my stomach hurt. And because they make my stomach hurt. That should have been stop, period, done. Do not go further, full stop. So I have struggled with that, being expected to pretend to be something that I wasn't. And that was not for me at all. And maybe, just maybe, telling the truth about this quiet contract helps someone else realize they're not broken. You're not broken. The system around you was broken. You were chosen for something that you didn't know what you were getting into. Everyone else understood their assignment. Their assignment was to make sure that you did what they had appointed you to do without your permission. They were just carrying something that was never meant to be theirs alone. In closing, a gentle permission. If you're in the middle of releasing this contract, let me say this. You are not failing your family by becoming whole. You are not abandoning love by setting limits. You are not selfish for stepping out of a role you never consented to. You are recovering. And recovery is not loud. It's steady, brave, and deeply human. Thank you for tuning in to Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. Again, I want to say this as heartfelt and honest as I can. Thank you for tuning in, truly. This podcast was a dream for me for a long time. And my goal was to help others and to talk about topics that I actually had understood and experienced. And your support is invaluable to me. It means a lot to me. And if there is a topic that you want to know and want me to explore further, please let me know. If I can help you in any way, again, please let me know. Again, you are appreciated very, very much. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.